Simplicity is at the core of Captivate's podcasting ethos, which is why creating a brand new podcast has never been easier. Whether you're new to podcasting or creating another show for your network, Captivate makes it very simple to launch your podcast. To begin, we simply add new podcast, and from here we can choose to import from another hosting platform, or we can create a brand new show. Creating a podcast is a very simple 5-step process, and it is fully guided with not only information about what to do, but also tips and tricks on what's the best thing to do for your podcast. Let's go ahead and create a brand new show. First of all, we simply add some very basic information about our podcast. My podcast name, the subtitle, the author name, and the author email address. And then I decide whether or not this is a private show. And for this example, I'm not going to create a private show. This will be a public podcast. Next, I move on to my podcast cover art. And it's very important that you follow these tips here on the right-hand side when it comes to your cover art. It's very important that you understand what that cover art should be formatted like. And of course, you can find all of that information over on the Captivate blog, or indeed search for cover art inside the OmniSearch up here to be taken to a big tutorial about your podcast cover image. I can go ahead and upload my cover art directly, or if I'd like to, I can skip that and come back to that later. Next, we add the description and choose our categories. It's important when choosing these categories that we choose the main category correctly. This is the main category that your podcast will appear in. The secondary and the third tertiary categories are really more subcategories. So it's very, very important to choose the right category for your podcast. From here, we simply go ahead and set up our directory settings. Most podcasts will be episodic, but you do have the option to set up episodic with seasons and serial podcasts, with each option clearly explained beneath the choice. We also choose whether we have explicit language in our podcast. It's very important to actually be honest with this. There is no right or wrong. It's completely fine to have explicit language in your podcast, but what's not fine is pretending there isn't any when there might be. So just make sure that you're being really honest with this. We don't necessarily need to change the maximum episodes, and if we want to, we can go ahead and just change the default publish time for our episodes as well. That's something that will help you in your workflow, but that isn't essential. I'm going to leave this set to 9 a.m. And we then go ahead and choose our time zone. Well, I'm here in the UK, so I'm going to choose Edinburgh and London. And then finally, we'll confirm your RSS feed URL. Now, we've actually chosen a URL for you here based on your podcast title. You can leave that set. That's completely fine. But if you want to customize it, you can do so. From there, we just go ahead and create our podcast. And Captivate will create that show for you and give you some very helpful links on what to do next. Perhaps you want to go and publish an episode. Perhaps you want to visit some of the resources that we have available to help you to start and grow your podcast. But for now, let's head to the dashboard.